Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Opposite the Monitor. And today we're going to get into some news about Skull and Bones, and it's still being in this rocky development hell stage. As well, we got some more information about Asmongold, kind of giving his thoughts on Starfield. And we also got some more information down the pipeline that I want to get into. Also, I also want to talk about Saints Row. So I've actually forgot to talk about that in my last video, but I'll touch upon that and give my thoughts on that as well at the end of this one. The ship continues to sink. Another creative director has left the development team of the infamous Skull and Bones, and it is definitely infamous. This game has just been in development hell, man. I don't know what is motivating Ubisoft to continue the development of this game. I truly, honestly do not know. I don't know the motivation, the reasoning behind it. I don't even know why they still have faith in this game. Like me personally, I probably would have axed this game a long time ago, just because of the different type of ideas, the different type of developers, and just the team that's been multiple teams that have been attached to this project over the years. Essentially, according to Kotaku, Elizabeth Pellin, who started working on the game back in 2018, has left Ubisoft's Singapore office to return to the Paris headquarters. And they go on to say that when Elizabeth started working on Skull and Bones, she helped change the vision of the project from a multiplayer ship combat shooter to an exploration-focused piracy simulator. Now, that is really, really good news. The multiplayer ship combat shooter was the gameplay they showed off last year. I think either last year or the beginning of this year. I think it was the end of last year, actually. That definitely did not win gamers over. The people who were interested in this particular game, that gameplay was so lackluster and boring. It's just like it was just all ship combat. And anytime you wanted to, like, the AI rated the actual islands and stuff, and only thing you did was just man the ship, and you could outfit your ship with different type of customizable options, different cannons, stuff like that. But that's not what the core fan base wanted. The core fan base wanted more of like a piracy simulator. They wanted to have like being able to control the ship as an option, as well as being able to kind of, get off the ship whenever you wanted to and go onto an island and raid different, or raid or pillage different type of villages and stuff like that, and get loot and things like that. Like that kind of would have been a really, really good, middle ground for gamers, but they went all in on the, ship combat, the multiplayer aspect of it. And that I can understand too, because that kind of puts it in a frame of we can monetize it this way. Which are not to say you can't monetize it the more like exploration focused way, but obviously the multiplayer side of it would have streamlined them to be able to put all kind of microtransactions and stuff in the game. So, her being attached to the game, she was able to kind of change the focus of it. But now it just kind of seems that if I had to guess, there'd probably be like some frustration behind the scenes, different, views on what would have been successful with the game and stuff like that. And now it just seems like they're kind of like in this limbo, I guess, with pushing it, trying to release the game at least. But according to her LinkedIn profile, she has returned to Ubisoft's Paris office as an editor. Ubisoft Singapore is definitely in trouble. If I would just shut this whole game down. I would either shut this whole game down or pass it on to a completely different studio. You could, I guess, Ubisoft Montreal or something, but I would pass that off to a completely different studio and, kind of have them focus on it. We've seen games like this before in like these rocky releases and stuff. I would, go back to Dead Island 2, which, was a successful game. I think they might have hinted already at a sequel to that game. But that game was another one that had very, very, like, it was development hell, rocky type of development cycle. It was passed around to multiple different, development teams and stuff like that. And given the fact that it was able to release in the way that it was released, as well as the condition that it released in, man, that game, like that developer, damn, Buster Studios did work a miracle with that game. And so, if you find a good development team that's, you know, willing to kind of take on all of this baggage with the game, I'm pretty sure you can be able to like push out a really, really good game at the end of, you know, this entire development hell. But at the moment now, you know, they lost another, you know, creative director, man, and it's kind of it's looking horrendous. I still, you know, can believe it's possible to turn it around. Probable, I don't know, but possible, yes. So yeah, man, it just seems like it's gonna continue going down this stage. Probably won't see this game come to fruition. I give it like maybe another 2 years at most, or within a year they may just outright cancel the game. I wouldn't be surprised about that either. But yeah, moving on though, we got some more information, and we're gonna talk about Asmongold and his particular I guess concerns, or his I guess different type of points that he pointed out with Starfield. But and I'll just talk about the highlights because everything else kind of, you know, talks about the same type of details. But, and I've also watched the video too, the 3-minute video that he had. But Asmongold criticizes Starfield for its lack of variety and meaningful content, making the game feel repetitive and dull with only 5 points of interest in each world. That's exactly what I said like a few videos ago. You can actually go check out the whole podcast about that. But, you know, people coming for me in the comments saying my whole point was that you don't need 1,000 planets. And this was the information that Todd Howard kind of brought forth, was like, yes, we have 1,000 planets, but only 100 of them are unique in nature. And this is what I'm saying, is that like, you don't need 1,000 planets. It was redundant. It was redundant. It wastes resources, wastes development time. You know, having to kind of create that you want to make stuff feel expansive, but you're doing it in the wrong way. You know, you want to have variety and make things feel meaningful while, you know, making it feel expansive. You can make a game feel expansive without it not necessarily having, like, playing a numbers game. You don't have to have 1,000 planets to make it feel expansive. You can do 20 planets and make that particular world feel expansive, or make that universe feel expansive. Like, they could have just did 20 planets and all of them would have been unique in nature, and being able to create a full exploration out of just those 20 planets, instead of just pinpoint direct points of interest, which is kind of what he goes into as well. And it's also kind of like what I've been able to see. But even in my own, you know, play session, you know, it's very much so. You could basically put this game into the vein of like an open world, where you have multiple different points of interest, and you just go to those points of interest to do side quests, or to do, you know, the main quest, or, you know, maybe loot here, loot there, whatever. It's not as expansive as Todd Howard once again likes to make it seem, because, you know, Todd Howard's a known liar. But going on though, he also kind of explains that they say that the streamer explored around 15 to 20 different planets in the game and found that they all felt remarkably similar, including the monsters, areas, loot, combat, and gameplay. I will say, I wouldn't say the monsters feel very repetitive. The areas, yes. I don't know how many times I've been to like a laboratory on different planets in different locations, and they all still kind of, the layout of them do feel very similar. The loot, I wouldn't say, I mean, I'm not complaining about the loot. The loot, I mean, the loot is loot. You know what I'm saying? You're going to run into some of the same types of loot all the time. So then that way you can be able to, you know, farm things and be able to, you know, craft items and sell things or stuff like that. So the loot is not a big issue for me. The combat, yes. The combat, I would say the gun combat does feel lackluster at times when I'm in the combat with someone. You know, it's that Bethesda feel. Like, I will say the gun mechanics, the way that the guns look, the way that the reload animations, you know, all of that looks way better than previous games. It looks way better than Fallout 4 and Fallout 76. Like, it looks better. But I will say that Starfield's gun, like, as far as the combat, very much so lackluster. It feels like any other of one of their previous games that they've developed before. And I think that's kind of like, for me, you know, I actually spend more time in just doing investigations and speaking with people and having dialogue with people. Like those, for some reason, that's more engaging to me than the actual combat. And I don't think it should possibly be that way. I think that the combat should be more engaging, and that's where the fun happens versus the investigation, the dialogue, the speaking with people. That should be kind of like a strong second, essentially. But he also goes on to say that Asmongold added that he wanted to like the game, but found it challenging due to the issues he encountered during his initial experience. I don't necessarily agree with that either. I enjoyed the game, but granted, this is his own personal take on it. Everyone's not going to like the game. Everyone's, not going to hate the game. But me personally, I find the game enjoyable. I think it's better than what I expected, and that could possibly play into my thoughts on it because I went in with very, very low expectations of this game. I went in with this game's going to be super buggy, which it has been buggy for certain people. I haven't ran into any bugs yet, and I'll get into that in my next topic. But it hasn't necessarily been super buggy for me. I've actually been able to, enjoy what I've played so far. Granted, I will say the areas are definitely very repetitive. The going into, different locations and labs and stuff like that is all very much so repetitive. It doesn't feel unique, and that's the issue. And that's what I'm saying is that the whole having the 1,000 planets and stuff like that, it's not unique. Even now, one thing I want to point out too is that even in the video that I saw there, because he was watching a video from a different creator and they were showing off that like it's not as expansive as they said, where it's there's walls you run into. Right. Here's the issue with that. And Asmongold's take on it is that, like, I think he quoted, I'm not going to quote him exactly, but he said that you're a fucking idiot if you think, if you want to go explore this because it's all the same. I'm not going to say that. I don't think you're an idiot for wanting to explore something that was promised to you that would be expansive. And that's the issue. The issue is that it isn't unique in nature. It's very repetitive, but also it's not expansive neither. So it's like it's two negatives. I can understand it being, expansive but not unique. You know what I'm saying? But the issue that arrives is that it's not even expansive. So it's not even what you said in the first place. What was the purpose in even having 1,000 planets if you can't freely roam around the planets? You're utilizing procedural generation, but you're still within a sandbox on each planet. That's very much so redundant, and like you're not even utilizing the mechanics of developing the game properly. Like you have procedural generation, which would make it easier to be able to create an abundance of locations. But even then, you're not even giving players the actual freedom that was promised up front, So that's my thing on it. Is just like, I kind of agree with Asmongold with, certain points on it. I'm not necessarily going to say that it's not enjoyable. It's, for me, I think it is pretty much enjoyable for what it is. Then again, I didn't go in with I didn't even go in with mid-tier expectations. I went in with very low expectations because I do not believe anything Todd Howard says, as well as I know what Bethesda has done in the past. And it's, it's not necessarily like a grandiose type of portfolio. The only games we can point back to all the time is just Skyrim and Fallout 3. Fallout 4 wasn't even that good, as well as Fallout 76 was utter garbage. So, they have a lot of work to do to kind of, get back into the public eye. Even my thing is that like, they're still using the same engine. Like, I'm just like, why? Like, you have other options. I mean, I know why. You don't want to pay out other companies for licensing out their engine. I get it. But at least work on a new engine, create a new engine, and then they're still up to the same old antics. They rather let modders just make the game for them. You know what I'm saying? I love modders. I love the modder community, but my thing is like, you're allowing, the only thing you're doing is encouraging bad behavior. Essentially, you're encouraging bad behavior. Like, we're just going to continue making games on this piece of shit engine, and then we're just gonna let modders just fix the game. Like even now, modders have fixed the UI, because the UI, I will say, is very terrible. Like the modders have fixed the UI. The modders have added in so many other different elements to the game, the quality of life, improvements to the game, that is stuff that Bethesda could do themselves. And that's just kind of like, it's a double-edged sword essentially. But my thing is like, it doesn't, encourage them to make good games out of the gate, or great games out of the gate, I meant to say. The game is okay. The game is okay. I think I just read recently that it's currently getting review bombed. So, I mean, I'm not surprised about that either. There's a lot of issues going on, with it. And, we got some more to talk about that going on for. But yeah, man, I kind of, just to kind of wrap this up, I do kind of agree with Asmongold a little bit. It is very much repetitive. I'm not going to go out on a limb and just be like, you're an idiot for wanting to explore the game. Exploration is part of the game. Exploration is part of the game. So it's like, yes, it may be repetitive, but at least give players that option to be able to explore the game if need be. You know what I'm saying? Don't put that out there as an option and then completely just not even add that into the game. So now not only is your game repetitive, but it lacks one of the components that was promised with the game initially. You know what I'm saying? So it's just like, it's like a double whammy essentially. But yeah, I kind of agree with Asmongold a little bit. But moving on, we have some more information. And Todd Howard asked on air why Bethesda didn't optimize Starfield for PC, and his response was, "We did. You may need to upgrade your PC. Just upgrade, bro. Just go out and go spend $2,000 on a GPU, bro." It's like, bro, what the see, this type of stuff essentially like irks my nerves. It's like a pet peeve of mine when I hear tone deaf responses to questions that have been asked of them. So they go on to say, like, why did you not optimize the game? And this is coming from Ed Ludlow from Bloomberg. Why did you not optimize this game for PC? He responds, Todd Howard responds, and Phil Spencer laughs at the response. We did. It's running great. It is a next gen PC game. We really do push the technology, so you may need to upgrade your PC for this game. But it's got a lot of great stuff going on in it, and the fans are responding awesome. That doesn't seem to be correct according to the reviews. If it was a great game, it wouldn't be a 7 out of 10 or 5.4 or whatever it is. It'd be a 9, or it'd be an 8, you know what I'm saying? And I'm not going to say it's elitist, but it is very tone deaf, to just come out and just be like, oh, you just need to spend more money, even though our economy is in the shitter. And, we're like, inflation is running rampant and all of these different things like that. You know what? If you want to be able to play our game and you want to be in our unique space, then you need to spend more money. You need to go spend more money. No, you should probably optimize your game for a variety of different GPUs and configurations for PC, because that's exactly what other developers do. Like, I don't understand this like hubris, and this is kind of what piggybacks on to like with modders and stuff like that, where it's just like you're doing the work for them. You're doing the work for them. They don't care whether or not the game is optimized for everyone or anything like that, even though they want to come out and be like, oh yeah, we want to listen to our players, our player base, and our community, and we really care about community. No, you don't. You don't care about your community. You don't care about any of that. You only care about making money for the bottom line. Stop out here, saying shit that's not true again, because you're constantly lying. 16 times the graphics. One of our most expansive games we've ever made. All these different type of quotes, and then you out here, saying that the reason why you can't play our game is because you have garbage tier PC specs. Like, what the fuck? Like, I don't understand how you can even say that. You know what I'm saying? Given the fact of, and like I said, look, there's an extent to it that is agreeable. You can't be out here still trying to play games on a GTX 1080 Ti, bro. Like, it's you there's an extent to it, but it's people out here with 2070 supers and 2080s, you know what I'm saying, or 2060s, like, and they're having issues with their game. They're having issues playing the game. So I'm just like, bro, like you're saying this tone deaf response, you know what I'm saying, and it's like, you should just, why don't you just spend more money and get you a better PC? Like, I don't understand how tough it is about, like, bro, everybody's not like a multi-millionaire, bro. Everybody don't make six figures. You know, that's not the reasonable response you should give to that. What you probably should say is that, well, you know, we're working with our development team to kind of like, you know, we're working on a development team to optimize the game a little bit more so it can be, you know, it can reach a bigger, greater audience, you know, not to just sit back, say tone deaf ass responses like this and then completely ignore the fact that there is bugs and shit within the game. And there's things that the game lacks, you know? So, I mean, in my opinion, very tone deaf, very much so like an ignorant response, I would probably say. You know, and I was like, man, like, you know, it's not the fact that Todd Howard is like a, you know, evil corporation guy or whatever like that, but it's more so just like you lack the understanding. I can tell that you lack the understanding just by what you say, just by what you put out to the public. I can tell your lack of understanding when it comes to, you know, the community you're making games for, as well as the industry that you're in, you know. And so it's just like, yeah, I completely disagree with this statement. I think it's asinine to even think that what he's saying is, you know, true in some regard. You know what I'm saying? Like, you know, there, like I said, there is an extent in which, you know, it is understandable. But my thing is that the majority of people, you know, that have PCs today that are playing games and stuff like that, like they don't have like PCs that are like 15, 20 years old at this point, you know, like most people have like a mid-tier gaming PC, you know, most people don't have a RTX 4090. Most people don't have a RTX 4080. They don't have the current gen. You know what I'm saying? Most people still have a 2060, you know what I'm saying? Or a 2070. Most people probably don't even have a 3090. If I had to guess, if I had a 3090 or a 3080, that population of that particular generation isn't the majority. I would say that the majority of it were people who probably got the 20 series cards, you know what I'm saying? Or probably like the GTX refresh, you know, something that's a little bit more affordable. Because people, you know, most people don't have that particular type of disposable income to just drop $3,000-$4,000 on a PC, let alone $2,000 on just the GPU itself. So it's kind of asinine to just think that, you know. But you know, it is Todd Howard, like I said. You know, he's basically, you know, one of those tone deaf, you know, type of, I guess, front men for Bethesda. You know, like I said, Pete Hines was out here saying some other stuff. It wasn't necessarily tone deaf, but it was very much so optimistic beyond reason. But yeah, moving on though, we kind of have some more information. Alone in the Dark marks latest delay to avoid competition with Spider-Man 2. Man, when I say they all delaying their games in October, October is definitely still Broketober, but man, like everybody's just moving their games out of it. They don't want to compete with Spider-Man. I remember Alan Wake didn't want to compete with, you know, Red Dead Redemption remake if it was coming out during that time, but even then that remake was terrible. I still feel like shit, like, you know, Alan Wake 2, if Red Dead Redemption remake released around the same time Alan Wake 2 was released before the delay, I would have been like, Alan Wake 2 is gonna win that battle. They're gonna win that battle because Red Dead Redemption 2 remake or Red Dead Redemption remake was awful, god awful release. But yeah, so they go on to say that the game was initially announced with an October 25th release date. And they kind of go on in a Twitter post from the Game Awards Twitter page. They say Alone in the Dark is moving release dates to January 16, 2024 to avoid competing with the wake of Alan's epic release and to evade the dazzling skyline cities adorned by the graceful swings of Spider-Man. That entire post, that quote was kind of weird. They go on to say that following the delay, the developer issued a statement clarifying that it did not want to compete with Alan Wake 2 and Marvel's Spider-Man 2. The quote is, "We intend to avoid competing with the wake of Alan's epic release and to avoid the..." Oh yeah, that was basically in the Twitter post. So yeah, you know, makes sense. You know what I'm saying? I mean, Spider-Man 2 is going to be one of the biggest games of the year, you know? And I mean, Alan Wake 2 is definitely, Alan Wake 2, gonna have a little bit of competition. I think Alan Wake 2 pushed theirs back like a week after Spider-Man 2. So I mean, that kind of gives them a different type of playing field, because most people will beat Spider-Man 2 probably within a weekend. But probably within a weekend. So, I kind of agree with it. Sometimes I want to see like these old battles happen though, because Alone in the Dark was a direct competitor to the original Alan Wake. Like that kind of was like Alan Wake meets Silent Hill a little bit. You know what I'm saying? But I mean, like, you got some big name faces with this type of game, and from the gameplay that I seen and the prequel that I played and stuff like that, like it seems like it's gonna be a good game in its own regard. Like if I had to kind of pick, and I mean on top of that too, like I'm pretty sure Alan Wake 2 is going for a complete digital release, so it may end up being like $40 or $50 instead of $70. I think or $50 instead of $60. So I mean, I probably wouldn't mind. And I think Alone in the Dark is going to end up being $40. I think $39.99. I think from what I saw, or $49.99 for like the deluxe or something like that. So I mean, like $100 for both. I mean, I would do that. I'll pay $100 for Alan Wake 2 and Alone in the Dark. So I mean, but it's essentially getting pushed back. I think they specifically said that they're going to push it back to, I thought it was January 16th of 2024. So, I mean, that's a big jump. That's like a whole 2 months, I think, 2 or 3 months. So, yeah, they pushed it back pretty far. But I mean, you know what? I guess like that kind of gives them enough time to be able to, if they were going to release it at the end of October, that kind of gives them more time to just, sit on the game and be able to, touch up things. There should be no excuse for optimization if you pushing it back that far. There should be no excuse, because if you were going to release it on October 25th and then you push it back another 2-3 months, it should be polished. It should be running really good. You know what I'm saying? There should be no issues day one. So, and from the prequel, like the prologue that I played, it seemed pretty optimized. I didn't run into any issues. Granted, it was a very small snippet of the game. It's kind of, I think you play like a flashback, but it definitely didn't seem to, buggy, anything like that. Like it was pretty much optimized. The atmosphere was nice. It still carried a little bit of that horror feel, a little bit to it. It seems more very story like. It is playing more into the horror, but the feel of it didn't present enough terror for me to be like, man, this game is gonna be pretty scary. And that's kind of like, I like the little happy medium that they have there. I feel like Alan Wake 2 is probably going to play more into the horror aspect of it than Alone in the Dark will. But yeah, they're pushing that game back, man. So I mean, hey, I'm not necessarily opposed to delays. I am opposed to just like games just constantly delaying though. Like that is very much so. Like I understand that, it's good to kind of have a game delay and work on itself, but I've seen too many times where they ask for a delay, or they come out and announce a delay, and then the game is still buggy and broken regardless. So I was just like, what was the purpose in even delaying the game in the first place if the game is just gonna be broken, So, but that's my 2 cents on it. But moving forward though, we have some more information. New Dying Light 2 microtransactions lead to outrage from fans. Not surprised. Who likes microtransactions? Nobody. You know what I'm saying? Like nobody likes microtransactions. But specifically this game though, man, and I got something to say with this is that Dying Light was an amazing game. The very first game was really, really great. When they came out with Dying Light 2, I think they lost the backing of Warner Brothers, because Dying Light 1 had the backing of Warner Brothers behind it. So they lost the backing of Warner Brothers. And there were some things lacking in the game. Me personally, I liked having guns in Dying Light, the first one. And then when I heard that there weren't any guns in the second one, it just didn't make sense for the reason that they gave. You know what I'm saying? I think the reason that they gave was more so just like, it's so far into the future that, guns just don't exist or something to that extent. But you mean to tell me like everything else exists? Like you can, you still got bow and arrows or whatever, and you still got like explosives and shit like that. Like, why don't guns exist, And I think it was just like they just had backing and different developers for Dying Light 1 that they didn't have for Dying Light 2. And you just didn't just having anybody experienced enough to kind of do like gun combat, essentially. So that was one of the reasons why I was just like, I'm not really messing with this. And then when the actual game came out, I was more so just like, it had been announced and then delayed and announced and delayed. And I'm just like, I'm just over this. I'd rather wait for Dying Light 2, not Dying Light 2, Dead Island 2. And Dead Island 2 to me is a much better game than Dying Light 2. In my opinion, because I saw gameplay of Dying Light 2, the UI looked very similar to Horizon Forbidden West. And I'm just like, I heard to see a bunch of people making excuses for certain things and stuff. And I'm just like, you know what? It's not a game for me. I'll just wait for Dead Island 2, and stuff like that. And, kind of seems like, most people didn't invest into the game. It did okay, but here's what kind of set people off, with the microtransactions. And right here, they kind of just said microtransactions has led to outrage from fans. A specific quote from a Redditor said that, so this is how Dying Light 2 dies. And these are specific points that I kind of want to get into right here, where they say, recently Techland was acquired by Tencent. This move was expected to introduce changes to the studio's current and future games, with many fans pointing to the acquisition as the major reason for the new microtransactions. I think I may have spoken on this briefly before, or maybe off camera or off screen that I did. I kind of saw this coming with Tencent being involved. And Tencent being involved, they're a corporation, at heart, and they're definitely going to try to figure out ways to monetize anything. So I already knew this wasn't going to be like a good look anyways. So yeah, it's definitely, it's not surprising at least. But they go on to say that Techland revealed it will introduce a new store items and a new currency. The currency is called DL points, and it was meant to keep players engaged with the game. I don't know how the hell you expect people to be engaged by spending money in a game with that's not even that expansive. Like, it's not a game that's like, it's not like you sitting back, this isn't Call of Duty. Like I said, every game doesn't need microtransactions in a store. And I don't understand who in their right mind at Tencent thought that putting microtransactions in any game is going to get anybody engaged, other than and this is where it kind of goes into the different ecosystems, I guess, or the different type of gamers. Like, in Tencent, for their Chinese customer base, they're very much into gacha games and different type of, microtransactions and MMOs and, all this type of stuff like that. So I can probably understand on a different type of level when it comes to, okay, our Chinese players, they like microtransactions. This is a type of environment that we've created and fostered over there. But American gamers are completely different. We don't need all that microtransaction gotcha game type bullshit in games. That's not anything that excites people. Like, when we hear, Call of Duty's releasing, we hear Call of Duty's releasing and it's exciting, or Battlefield releasing and it's exciting. You know what I'm saying? When we hear that, we don't hear, oh man, these microtransactions are going to be amazing. I'm going to get all the damn skins. I'm going to spend thousands of dollars just to buy all of the damn skins. Most people in America most gamers in America don't look at it like that. You know what I'm saying? Not to say that Chinese, gamers look at it that way either, but they're more accepting of it than it is over here, and so it's just kind of, weird to even think that, it would get players more engaged if we just add more ways for them to spend their damn money. No, it's stupid. The player base for Dying Light is more than the player base for Dying Light 2. So it's just I don't get that. They kind of go on to kind of explain the different type, the actual pack that was in it was in Dying Light 2. It's called the Inferno pack, and it had a specific type of weapon in the pack, but Techland said that the microtransactions were only going to be cosmetic, and that was a lie, because there's a specific weapon in it's called the Fire Devil bundle. So there's a specific pack in there, a power item in there that is part of a microtransaction, which isn't cosmetic. So there's the one fumble right there. The second fumble was, they gave everyone 500 DL points for free. as if this is Fortnite, you know, and then turn around and the cheapest thing in the store is 550 DL points. So, I mean, like you're also getting into, so now not only are you adding microtransactions, you're lying on top of adding microtransactions and stuff like that. And now you're turning people off from engaging with the game altogether. You know what I'm saying? So, you know, and then they kind of go on to say that, you know, fans have called the move more predatory and pathetic. I mean, I'm not surprised. Yeah, it is very much so pathetic. I don't understand what more money you want to get out of the game. This is kind of like why, and this is why I reported on last week, man. Final Fantasy 16 is a good type of example to use, like when developing the game like that. Like right now, they just confirmed that they're working on 2 DLC expansions. If you want gamers to continue to be engaged with the game, make more content outside of cosmetics. Don't make cosmetics. How about you can make cosmetics, but add it into an expansion. So now guess what? You can charge people maybe $30, $40 for, extra 10 hours, 15 hours of gameplay in an expansion. This expansion comes with all new not guns, but all new cosmetics. You can add a bunch of stuff in there, and then that's how you make money on games like this on the back end. This isn't a Fortnite game. This isn't, Call of Duty. This isn't Battlefield. This isn't a battle royale game or an extraction shooter. You know what I'm saying? Like, this is a single player or like a co-op narrative driven open world game. You know what I'm saying? And it's just like ridiculous to even try to think that this would have made gamers or players more engaged. Oh man, that's so asinine to just even sit back and hear that on paper. But yeah, man, like gamers are outraged about microtransactions. Not surprised. It's stupid. It's a dumb move. It's a dumb corporate executive move to make, but moving on though, we got some more information. And here's why I wanted to get into kind of Saints Row, man. Saints Row's story allegedly had a different tone until Deep Silver interfered. So here's some more corporate exec interference with the creative process. So a YouTuber by the name of Flippy claims that Volition had originally planned for the story in Saints Row to be more like Saints Row 2.5 in tone, but publisher Deep Silver intervened and said that it would not be a commercial success. That is a very dumb move to make. To say that a game that was a commercial success previously wouldn't be a commercial success today is very much so stupid. It's very, very dumb to even think that. Obviously hindsight is 2020. You know what I'm saying? The game did poorly. The game did terrible, but it would have had a better chance had you kept the tone, had it just been a reboot, an actual reboot. You don't necessarily have to keep the same characters, but like you could have kept the same tone. You could have kept the purpose of the, what Saints Row is and stuff like that. You just ended up making the shit like a Gen Z goofy ass game effectively. You know what I'm saying? So they go on to say that instead they steered the game in a different direction by insisting on having the game take a more upbeat tone with a storyline involving a group of friends. Stupid, dumb. I'm just going to outright say it. It's dumb. Why would you even do that? You know what I'm saying? If you wanted to make a game like that, just make your own damn game. Make your own game. Don't attach it to the Saints Row name and just do your own thing. Then that way it's like, okay, you tried. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know what the allure is to just take something that's established and then we're just going to do whatever the hell we want to do with it as if the game hasn't been established already. You know what I'm saying? As if the game isn't a franchise already, and the main reasoning it's a franchise is because it's built on the backs of developers who created an awesome project to begin with. So stupid. So they go on to say that the studio Volition was recently shut down by parent company Embracer Group over Saints Row 22's lack of commercial success. This is where I kind of disagree with it, but I'll continue further. If the information shared by the YouTuber, it would suggest that the development team had not been given creative control over the game. That I believe. But the first part, I'm not going to strictly just jump out and say that the main reason why Volition was shut down was because of, Saints Row's lack of commercial success. And it's kind of funny too, because the Deep Silver said that they didn't want to go with the original idea because it wouldn't have been a commercial success. And now the game isn't a commercial success. So that's very funny. But I think for me personally, I don't think all the blame can just be put on Volition. Nor do I think it should just be put on Deep Silver for the game. I don't think the studio got shut down. Yes, because of the lack of success for the game. It probably could have still been around if the game was a success. But I'm pretty sure the reason why they got put on the chopping block was because of that reason, as well as Embracer Group themselves making a terrible deal to begin with, which I've reported on before, where they did a verbal agreement instead of an actual contractual agreement and made the wrong type of investments. And now they losing money, laying off a bunch of different employees and stuff. And now they have to close, studios. This is just a consequence and repercussion of bad business going on at the top, going on at Embracer Group. So, I don't necessarily put all the blame on Volition, nor do I put it all on Deep Silver. I put a lot of it on Embracer Group. You know what I'm saying? For the fact that you're making terrible business deals, and now you don't have the income or revenue enough to be able to sustain these studios anymore, and they're just one fuck up away from being shut down. You know what I'm saying? Like that type of. I try to take things back to the beginning, and it's just they made a terrible game, but I mean, like, you also made terrible business decisions. So it's like, you know what I'm saying? It's like, I don't understand like trying to just put all the blame on just specific points of, development studios or production studios. Like, no, like you also contributed to the reason why a lot of people, I think it was like 11 or 13,000 employees got laid off from Embracer Group after making that terrible deal. You know what I'm saying? So it's just like, yeah, no, we're not going to skim over that. We're not going to skim over, the bullshit or the fuckery that you created like long ago, So, I mean, yeah, it's, terrible to kind of see, but I mean, like, it's everyone's to blame in my eyes. Embracer Group's to blame, Deep Silver's to blame, as well as Volition, like, what I'm saying? Deep Silver had no reason in being involved in the creative process. You know what I'm saying? Like, if Volition is making the game, let them make the game. Don't get involved with the creative process, and then now there's too many cooks in the kitchen. So, I mean, but they go on to say that Deep Silver ultimately called the shots regarding the direction that its IP would take. Volition wanted the game's narrative to focus on gang warfare, which would have been the smart thing to do, because that's what the original game was about. But the publisher wanted the subject matter to be about friendship, which is a major departure from previous entries in the series, about friendship. Wow, this is what I'm talking about, man. People who have never played the original games before out here making decisions on, not just decisions, out here making major decisions on games they have no business making decisions on. And the only reason they're making these decisions is because they're in a specific position at a company, and that company allows them to make that decision. This is the reason why I think that certain major companies need to have a more autonomous nature when it comes to the delegation of duties within the company. Like, this is why, and that can kind of be like a double-edged sword, we go back to Redfall, right? With Microsoft. Like, Microsoft had a very hands-off approach to Redfall, and then that particular studio suffered because, you had execs in that company making decisions that did not contribute to the success of that game. So it could be a double-edged sword, but my thing is that if you have the right people in a specific position that know what they're doing with the game, or if you have consultants, people who used to work on the old games in that studio helping consult and make sure the game is on track to be able to kind of, give fans what they want and stuff like that, because the fans is who you're appealing to. You want fans to be on board, so that way they're the ones that contribute to the success of the game, since they give the monetary aspect of it. You earn money through appeasing fans, which that's another, story for a different day. But, that's kind of like, you want to have that more autonomous nature if you have the right people in, on board to be able to make that game. This type of stuff here just sounds like it was too many cooks in the kitchen. But then they go on to say that a YouTuber didn't entirely put Volition off the hook, as they said that the developer was responsible for shoehorning the awful combat system. However, according to them, a larger share of the blame goes to Deep Silver for setting a tone that the series had never been known for. Like I said, I blame everybody. I blame Deep Silver, I blame Volition, and I blame Embracer Group. All of them are wrong in this particular instance. But yeah, I mean, Volition did shoot by put in that, look, yeah, the combat system was bad, but here's my thing, right? The combat system can be saved. The story, once the story's in the game, there is no saving that. There is no going back trying to have people re-say their lines and change up cutscenes. And no, that's way more heavy lifting than it is to tweak and fix the combat system. So my thing is like, look, I feel like the game could have probably been saved had the story been good. If the story was good, then the combat system would have, fallen in place later. You know what I'm saying? Like the combat system, I feel like more gamers would have been okay with the combat system being bad for a little while versus the combat system's terrible, and now I have to suffer through these insufferable ass characters and this bad story. You know what I'm saying? And it's just like, it comes back to prioritization, and too many cooks in the kitchen. It's like, if they wanted to make the game more about gang warfare, which is what the original games were about, then let them do that. And then once that's done, if the combat is terrible, you can patch the combat later. Like the combat is something that ain't something, like the combat is something that is, fixable. But once the story's in the game, that's a wrap for the game. There is no going back. There is no going back, redoing stuff and adding it later. No, there is none of that. You know what I'm saying? That's way more expensive than it is to just get developers to fix and tweak certain aspects about the combat. But yeah, man, it's ridiculous. It's kind of crazy at this point, man. I feel like just, everybody's at fault in this particular situation. It's not just, Volition, and it's not just Deep Silver. It's also Embracer Group as well, and so, that's kind of like my piece that I kind of have to say on this, man. But yeah, Saints Row is just let it die. I'm not talking about it anymore. That game is terrible. The studio's gone now, and it sucks that the studio's gone now, but it's like, hey, you only did it to yourself. I'm not necessarily like, it sucks that people have to lose their jobs and stuff like that. Like, that's terrible. I don't want nobody to lose their jobs. You know what I'm saying? Especially not given this economy, no one should really be losing their jobs, like that. But it's like, people are out here making stupid ass business decisions. You also have execs being engaged in the creative process when they shouldn't have, because they're making terrible decisions. And then you have developers not doing their job when it comes to crafting the combat system or one of the more important aspects of the game itself. So it's just like everybody's at fault here. It's not just one particular person. But that's it for today, guys, man. If you guys enjoyed the content today, I kind of had, it was a lot more rambling and ranting this particular time. But if you guys enjoyed the content today, make sure you like the video. If you enjoy the content all the time and you never want to miss a video, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell, and I will see you guys next week, man. Thank you guys for tuning in. Take it easy.